Well, good evening, America, and welcome to another episode of Q News Tonight, the world's first live daily gay evening news. And we thank you for joining us tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and I'm joined by anchors Aaron Darr and Napoleon Plays.
Hello, everyone.
We want to tell you that the show tonight, as always, this is the end of our first week of the first evening news show in the LGBT community in the world. We are completely live. This is a live broadcast, and it is an unscripted news show. We're going to talk about a lot of different issues in the community. Q is a program of Q News Tonight, part of the Happening television network. And we do 3 shows, including an entertainment show called Happening.Fun, and of course the most popular live gay TV show in the world, which is It's Happening Out. So we thank you for joining us tonight at Q News Tonight.
That's right. And if LGBTQ plus voices are important to you, make sure to like and subscribe. And even more specifically, if our LGBTQ voices are important to you, then make sure to start a watch party. It's really simple, so just watch this. When viewing our live show in your app, please click share. After clicking share, your screen should change and you can then click watch party. On the next screen, you can write text to your viewing audience and then click start watch party. You've done it. Enjoy your party.
And very important to also note that we are broadcasting to you live this evening, as always, from our set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center, right here in the heart of Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, which, as Al likes to say, also the gayest place on planet Earth.
Aaron, you just proved that that is true. Come on now.
Perhaps maybe I did, but I think Al might have beat me to it this evening with his pink tie.
Pink tie, all right. Well, we're doing the news. Right?
And also our set, which some of the furnishings are coming from Concepto Modern Living.
Yeah, and good evening, as we said, America, and let's dive right into the news. First, we talk about queuing up world news, and there's a lot of news in the headlines this evening. First, news about the airliner that was downed in Tehran. It has been confirmed today the United States has basically identified that Iran, in defense, when they had the attack on Iraq, shot the airliner down. We've prepared this. Watch this.
Officials across the administration are telling CNN, including our own Pamela Brown and Jim Sciutto, that the working theory now is that Iran mistakenly did shoot down that Iranian Boeing 737, the Ukrainian 737 civilian airliner that was flying through Iranian airspace, that it was mistakenly shot down, most likely by an Iranian missile. Mistakenly. No evidence that Iran deliberately did this. And in the president's appearance just now in the White House, he was asked about this very question, and it was most telling what he said. He said that it could have been a mistake by someone in Iran.
So as you just saw, we're seeing more information coming out of the Ukrainian International Airlines Boeing that had gone down over in Iran. It's being hailed as a fog of war incident. Unfortunately, it was individuals in Iran who thought that they perhaps were under siege or under attack, so it's being hailed as a mistake on their end. We're also just now getting word that there is allegedly a video that has been released as of 6 p.m. this evening showing an external force also being identified as an Iranian missile that in return hit the airliner, causing the airliner to go down as well.
Aaron, help us understand the news that we're watching this evening. Basically, your understanding of what has happened here is that Tehran and Iran in general was launching the attack on the 2 bases in Iraq, and they mistakenly thought that the Boeing Ukrainian plane
they thought that Iran had thought that they perhaps were being under attack once again. So again, it is being hailed as a fog of war incident, where in the aftermath of back and forth missiles, they truly thought that they were under attack. It's being labeled as a mistake on the end of the Iranian government, and it's very unfortunate because this has left over 176 individuals dead, 82 of them Iranian.
Tremendously.
Yes.
Mostly for North America, Canadians, I understand.
Yes, a lot of them were en route to Canada, but in terms of their nationalities, 82 of them were Iranian, but many of them, out of the 176 individuals, actually did live in Canada, but many of them native to Iran.
Right. We continue in our world news tonight to talk about China. Full discussions are going on in the Parliamentary Association in China about the legalization of gay marriage in China. As we are about to report, Napoleon, tell us about what is being discussed in China.
That's
gay
right.
marriage.
The People's Congress has revealed that they've received over 230,000 requests to allow marriage equality. And China has historically been a little bit more toward the traditional side. It wasn't until 1997 that they actually decriminalized homosexuality, and not until 2001 that they declassified being homosexual as a mental disorder. So they have LGBTQ clubs. They have all sorts of different scenes that are censored in the media as far as LGBTQ go. That was as recent as Bohemian Rhapsody. But conversion therapy is still legal there. So there's a back and forth as to how progressive it will actually be for homosexuality.
Of course, this is big news, China being the largest population on the planet. If the percentages of LGBT to straight community hold true, estimates are that there could be as many as 140 to 170 million LGBTQ people in China. So very, very big news. Continuing in world news, we move to Australia and the fires. And an interesting thing has happened this week where gay adult video stars have offered help and have actually participated in unique ways. Aaron, tell us about that.
Yes, multiple gay film adult stars have come forward expressing that for $10 they will do whatever you want.
$10 they'll do what?
For $10 US, they will go ahead and they will slide directly into your direct messages by sending you a pornographic image of themselves if you can show proof of receipt that you've donated to a cause that deals directly with the ongoing fires throughout Australia.
I read late this afternoon that already in the campaign that has been associated with this, we're watching Rocco Steele, that more than $1 million has been raised in this project.
Yes, more than $1 million.
And almost half of that was yours.
Rocco is a very good friend
yes,
of mine, actually.
and that is Rocco Steele, who's well known for some of his work, I guess you could say. But also very important to note, because I do not want to erase women in the process of doing this, Instagram model Kaylin Ward actually is one who initiated this, having raised over $1 million herself by selling nude photos of herself for $10 initially.
It's a very clever way to help.
It is. It's a lot of $10 photos.
And raise brand awareness all at the same time.
All right, exactly. We move out of our segments on world news and we move to the United States. And breaking, of course, this afternoon is the War Powers vote today in the House. And we've prepared this piece for you. Watch this.
Some have asked, do you agree that this is the worst intelligence classified briefing that Congress has received from this administration? As some of you have heard me say, there is stiff competition for that designation of worst. So here we are to protect American lives and values. We are passing today a War Powers resolution to limit the president's military actions. The administration must de-escalate and must prevent further violence.
So the War Powers Act is also known as the War Resolution Act, and it became effective in 1973. And it is, in shorthand, the federal law which limits the ability and checks the power of the president's ability to commit the U.S. to any kind of armed conflict without the consent of the U.S. Congress, which is required to declare war. And today the House of Representatives voted on Michigan Democrat Alyssa Slotkin's resolution, which would terminate the use of the U.S. armed forces to engage in hostilities with Iran following the course of actions with Soleimani this past weekend. And just about an hour ago, the report has come in. 224 have voted for this resolution, and 194 have voted against the resolution. So it did go through, and that left 8 Democrats and 3 Republicans who defected against their sides and voted against those respective sides. Another thing of note with this is that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, mentioned that the members of Congress have serious, urgent concerns about the administration's decision to engage in hostilities against Iran without strategy. And so we can see that the entirety of our government is still very divided on how to follow up with Trump's very immediate actions that he took the other day.
I'm curious, Aaron, you're our political expert at the table. Do you think the vote today in the House has any consequence at all?
I think there's, like I had said, some segment earlier this week, that 2 days, 10 days, 2 weeks, months, and as a lifetime in politics. So, we're just now in the beginning of January. The election's going to be in November. So with that being said, in terms of consequences for the elections for Democrats and Republicans, it's too early to tell. However, what does happen in Iran, and whether or not the President of the United States, through his policies towards Iran, if he continues to escalate violence with Iran further, then I think that we're going to see some kind of split. And I think that was a reason to, yet again today, for Speaker Pelosi to move forward with a vote for resolution. Yes.
We continue in other news that affects the LGBTQ plus community in the USA, and that is the decision that has been made that Google is being forced to hand over JUSSIE Smollett's emails. Aaron, tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
Yeah, so a lot of us remember this story. This happened last January. So former Empire star Jussie Smollett had alleged that he was the victim of a racist and homophobic attack by 2 individuals who later had come out forward and said that they were paid $3,500 by Jussie himself to arrange this attack, and that the attack was nothing more than an act of publicity. So, of course, charges against those 2 men for that initially were dropped, and charges for filing a false felony report were later brought to Jussie and later dropped by a judge. And now they've moved forward on subpoenaing Google and other outlets of sources to see if they could get the location data, messages, and private emails from Jussie to see if this was indeed an act of publicity.
And we understand the court has ruled that Google must turn over.
Yes, but that does not mean that Google is necessarily going to comply, and if they do, when. So it's going to be a very long, drawn-out process.
Legal process.
Yes.
Other news in the USA today that affects the LGBT community is warnings of same-sex marriage licenses going on in Tennessee. Napoleon, tell us about what's happening in Tennessee.
That's right. A warning has gone out to over 95 county clerks that were sent a threatening letter for issuing marriage license to same-sex couples. This went out by attorney David Fowler. We see him and another discussing this in the video above. And they wrote to the clerks saying that Tennessee's Constitution states the relationship of one man and one woman shall be the only legally recognized marital contract in the state. So his argument is that the marriages that they have enacted that are between same-sex couples are de facto not a thing. And that the follow-up to that is that this shouldn't actually put any of those marriages in any sort of jeopardy because the Supreme Court granted marital equality 5 years ago. As we all remember, it was a renowned case across the country. And federal law trumps state law, so every marriage that was enacted by those clerks should still be standing.
It's interesting to me that that they would do this to just create confusion in all of the counties in Tennessee, which apparently they have been successful at doing.
Confusion and doubt. The people that were married then were, for a moment, thinking that they might not have had a legal marriage. I can imagine that would put you in a very tumultuous position with your sense of being and self, with your relationship, that it might not have been legally married.
Let's move out of our USA news, and we have a new segment tonight that we're going to do very frequently, and it's called What's on Your Mind. And tonight we have an interesting piece for the LGBTQ plus community about the best literature, the best reads. And a noted author, Christopher Clausen Rule, has prepared a little piece for us of what we should be paying attention to in LGBT plus books. Watch this.
Thank you, Q News. I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Here, this is how we do winter, people. As you've heard, this is the gayest place on earth. They've asked me to bring you a few books, and I kind of wanted to keep it very light and very honest with you today, and not bring something too instructional. So I brought you A Quiet Man by Richard Randall. Everyone has one. It's a coming out story, or several coming out stories. And it kind of tells how Richard went into a coffee shop, realized that this is the life that he actually wanted, and trying to figure it out with himself how that was actually going to work. So he wrote about it and wrote these stories down. You can get it on Amazon, Kindle, and also on BreakingNewsPublishing.com. Look him up, Richard Randall, The Quiet Man. Really good book. Next we have Spaces Between by Nico Tortorelli. This book kind of sparks a new dialogue around humanity, sexuality, gender identification that seems to be missing in some of the conversations that we have, not only with ourselves, but with each other. It's not an instructional manual, it's more kind of a conversation that he's having with his characters, and you'll find it very inspirational and maybe enlightening as you go along. This too can be found on Amazon and Kindle, and I picked this up at the Barnes & Nobles here in Fort Lauderdale, so feel free to do that as well. Lastly, we have Triangle Writers by Breaking News Publishing. This is a magazine full of short stories and poetry that is from or based on the LGBT community. We decided that we were going to create this magazine so that they would have a place to land, and this is what we've come up with. These authors are from all over the world, and we ship all over the world. So look them up on Breaking News Publishing. That's all I have for you today. Hopefully we'll have something more next time, and have a great day.
From noted author Christopher Clausen Rule, we thank you very much. What's on your mind? America and world, for those of you watching, we have an open invitation for journalists, people that have specialty or interest in the LGBT community. Reach out to Q News Tonight, and we would like to incorporate you in a focus of having a focus piece like you just saw Christopher Clausen Rule do. We're going to move into entertainment. Next, we're queuing up entertainment. An interesting thing has just happened with reality star Jax Taylor outing his co-star. We've prepared this for you. Watch.
While making an appearance on Watch What Happens Live, a viewer called in with a question about Tom and Ariana, but Jax interrupted by mumbling this under his breath.
Probably not going to have kids because Ariana doesn't want it.
Is jealousy...
Yes, everyone, including Andy Cohen, was a bit taken back by that statement. Right, Andy? Now, Jax did try to backtrack.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry, but... What do you mean you didn't mean it? You just said it.
I know.
Yeah,
It was an
Jax.
accident.
Well, Ariana decided to set the record straight, tweeting, "I do like women and men. It's called being bisexual. Ever heard of it?"
So as you just saw in the video that we just showed from an episode of It's Happening Now, Vanderpump Rules star Jax Taylor has outed his co-star from Vanderpump Rules, Ariana Madix, saying that she likes women. She actually, interestingly enough, which is not covered in that story, I don't believe, she later came out on Twitter and said that, yes, I like men, and yes, I like women. I guess that means I'm bisexual. Hashtag, it's not that hard. So she has come out as bisexual, but this leads one to believe that him saying that she's lying about it, does it mean that you're lying about it if you as a public person are just not being open about it? Are you still entitled to your own privacy in terms of your sexual orientation and your sex life if you're a public person?
I wonder why it mattered to him at all, but I guess that's beyond that point at this,
And
this
the
moment.
interesting news to me in this story is on a live show. Of course, I watch that show that he was on where he did this. On a live show, you can't take it back. Exactly what we experience every night doing Q News Tonight. Why somebody would out somebody in this day and age if they're not ready to be outed, I don't understand why he would have even done that. An interesting story. Continuing in entertainment news, LIZZO is quitting Twitter, and we all found this story fascinating in reporting it today. Napoleon, tell us about what Lizzo is doing.
That's right. You guys remember Lizzo. She rose to fame last year in 2019, though she's been in the music scene for a while. She is LGBTQ ally. She is body positive, enforcement, high energy female artist. And after a series of events on Twitter where a doctor told her that she's only popular because of American obesity epidemic, the American obesity epidemic, because of being discredited allegedly as a rapper and her work being demerited, she has decided to leave Twitter. So I guess she's taken that route that a lot of artists find that it is not a positive place to be, as we all have experienced at some point in the last 4 years, and is deciding to jump ship, at least for now. So we'll see what happens.
I read some of the comments about body shaming that took place a lot in Twitter. I'm not in Twitter. I'm on other social platforms. Do y'all live in the Twitter universe?
I check it for updates. That's about it.
I may have tweeted in the past.
A few times, right? Okay. Well, interesting on her decision to give it up completely.
Yeah.
We move into queuing up travel, and travel, of course, is very important to the LGBT community. And we report that we are on the eve of the beginning of the Aspen Gay Ski Week. And the Aspen Gay Ski Week is going to have thousands of LGBTQ community from around the United States and the world come to Aspen, Colorado for the week in Ski Week. And we report on the event going, and I'm excited because for the first time ever, I'm going to a gay ski week. And I'll be doing some reporting from Aspen and many different kinds of events. I looked at the weather at dinner tonight, and it's 10 degrees, and I live in Fort Lauderdale. That's 74 degrees today, so that should be interesting. I have never done a gathering like this in gay community. What do y'all think about Aspen Gay Ski?
Have you been skiing before?
I have never been skiing.
So you're concerned about the temperature when you've never been moving downhill at any sort of speed on skis?
Wait, did you? Yes. The answer to that is yes.
Are you
America? You're watching Napoleon read me.
Are you going to wear any kind of camera that gives an action of your face as you're going down for the first time?
I'm sure Q News and Happening.Fun, and especially It's Happening Out, we'll have a lot of video that will poke at Al.
Well, that's good to know because I think the closest Al's ever been to skiing is Sonny Bono. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, travel is very important to the LGBT community. Gives us an opportunity to tell you. This is just our first week, but we're going to cover travel quite a lot. And there's lots of great events all over America and the world. And the eve of the Aspen Gay Ski Week is beginning. I'm very excited to participate for Q News tonight, and especially It's Happening Out to do this, and I'll be back. That means next week, Napoleon and Aaron will be crashing the plane, apparently, at Q News tonight. No, they're going to do a great job. I'll be watching you every night at 7 o'clock.
From
Eastern
the slopes.
Standard Time. Right. From the hot tubs, I understand.
Yeah.
Outdoor hot tubs at ski mountains.
That's why you're going. It has nothing to do with the slopes at all.
Exactly.
It's just
right.
the hot tub.
We move next into religion. We queue up religion in the news. First, we go to Brazil. Netflix has been airing through the holidays a special Christmas movie on gay Jesus, and a Brazilian judge today has announced that Netflix in Brazil must discontinue broadcasting it, and Aaron's going to tell us a little about that.
Yes, it's a Netflix special for Christmas called The First Temptation of Christ, in which Jesus Christ, for the holidays, returns home, and but what else? He brings his gay lover. So this is very controversial for those who will perhaps view Jesus in a traditional light, where Jesus would be having a heterosexual relationship rather than a homosexual relationship. So this, of course, is by a Brazilian judge that has ordered that they take and remove this special off of the air with Netflix. Netflix has, that we know of today, yet to comply, which of course they can and will, I'm sure, appeal this to the Supreme Court in Brazil. So it'll be very interesting to see how this continues to play out.
Other news about religion moves down to Australia, and of course you know about the fires going on. The most notable a gay pastor in the United States, has been banned from Australia. And Napoleon has some news about that story.
Yes, Steven Anderson has garnished a reputation as the Christian hate pastor, and he has said a lot of things that are anti-LGBTQ across all nations. And in wake of the Australian bushfires that have been raging now for many days, he stated that the judgment of God is that the fires are the cause of a judgment of God for banning and deporting preachers of the gospel. He's saying God is punishing the lack of Christianity in Australia. And of course, Anderson was banned from not just Australian borders in July of 2019, but he's also banned in 32 other countries. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that pretty much says it all.
You know, it's interesting, having watched him online before, I truly believe that those who judge the homosexuality the most are the ones doing it behind closed doors. And that's all I have to say about that.
My goodness. All right, we move into queuing up business, and it's a commitment here at Q News tonight. Chick-fil-A is back in the news. And Aaron, tell us about Chick-fil-A and the American Family Association.
Yes, so everyone's favorite chicken, Chick-fil-A, Don Cathy, who happens to be the son of founder Truett Cathy of Chick-fil-A, has gone on to establish a letter that was released on December 5th stating that Chick-fil-A was going to step back in terms of their charitable givings to organizations, some of those organizations having been the Salvation Army and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. This is in a means to not discredit those organizations, but to appease political correctness within society as Chick-fil-A moves forward and trying to rebrand themselves in areas where their restaurant business perhaps would no longer be appreciated in more liberal areas, if you will.
We reported a little while back, it's happening out, and we had conversation about it, that we thought Chick-fil-A was finally going to move into the LGBTQ plus column. Basically, what we're finding out is that's not true.
Well, in the letter that they had released, and then of course in the wake of that, many people had responded, many within the evangelical far right responding, that have been nothing short of allies to Chick-fil-A, have gone on to state that they realize that this is not to discredit those faith-based organizations, but it was just a measure that was understood that it needed to happen for Chick-fil-A to thrive financially in the future.
Well, thank you for that update on Chick-fil-A and the American Family Association. We move into queuing up gay culture, and a new dating site for the LGBT community has begun. And Napoleon, tell us about what is happening there.
That is right. A new dating site called Meet Positives is meant to connect singles and erase stigmas that still surround STDs and STIs. They're a dating site that hopes to end the HIV positive stigma. Now, they give positive LGBTQ members a chance to date again and embrace others who have experienced the same struggles, so that they can relate on a similar principle. And the Center for Disease Control has stated, as a bit of information and context, that 110 million Americans have STIs and 20 million more are diagnosed each year. So there's a growing number of these people. And of course, we know that the HIV population has a long history with LGBTQ communities. But in addition to that, statistics show that HIV and syphilis are running rampant in the LGBTQ communities today. So be aware of that if you do involve yourself in our community.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I think that this is great. I think that we need to continuously share our stories, and in part of sharing your stories, sharing your status. So when one can be upfront, whether they're positive or negative, but knowing your status initially before you do have sexual relations with another individual, that is the power truly of knowledge and knowing your status.
I completely agree, and I have to make the connection. America and the world, we're broadcasting from the middle, right in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center here in Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is ground zero for this for the AIDS crisis of the last 40 years, and it memorializes that. And I think terrific observation on both sides, and how appropriate our commitment this year to broadcasting and embracing the message of the World AIDS Museum, and why we do a story like this for gay culture. Our final story tonight we call is Good News, and we'd like to end our broadcast of Q News tonight with good news. Now, everyone knows about what's happening in Australia with the fires. It's the greatest fire event in more than 1,000 years. More than 1,000 years going on in Australia. And yesterday, a very interesting thing happened, actually in the last 2 days. American firefighters arrived in the Sydney airport, and they received a warm, we play on words, reception. And we want to show you a short piece of cell phone video from the Sydney International Airport when they arrived. Watch this.
I'm just going to wait with the mic there.
You know, in a time when America may not be welcomed around the world in various different ways and for various different reasons, this was quite a beautiful moment. The people in the terminal, this was a spontaneous reaction of the announcement that these were American firefighters that were arriving in Australia to help in the catastrophe going on there. Any thoughts about that little bit of good news that we showed?
It is barely good news, just given the nature of everything that's going on. So I appreciate the positive outcome that we're looking for in it, but we need to do more. We need to find ways of being more helpful and ending this kind of crisis.
Well, America and world, that ends our first week of Q News tonight. It's been very exciting. I want to say to you, this has been an amazing experience. It has been amazingly difficult as an experience. And first and foremost, I want to thank Aaron Dar and Napoleon Plays as anchor partners of the three of us for this show to bring an LGBT evening news program live, unscripted, to the world is beyond difficult. I also want to congratulate, as we finish our first week, we're going to be here every week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to congratulate Darren Lowley, and I want to get the names in of the people that have just sacrificed so much to make this possible. Our executive producer, Darren Lowley, our production director, Stephen Smith, our creative director, Frank Garcia, our production editor, Jared Curry, our production editor, David Hopkins, our story editor, Christopher Swarner, our director of business and community outreach, Napoleon Plays, our anchor here to my left, your right, Aaron Dar, and the executive director of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center that made this location possible, Raquel Lopes. And of course, you know, I'm your principal anchor at Q News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and I want to remind you, we're going to be here documenting the important stories of the LGBT community. This is the only place in the world where it's live on a daily basis, focusing on why our community is important. Literally, I think after our first week, we can say, job well done, guys. We are definitely out of the closet and into the headlines. And that's Q News Tonight. Good night.
See you next week.